The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. So thrilled to be here with you after this long weekend. There's a lot to talk about today. Most notably, of course, it's been all over the news. It's all over all the social media. The terrible shooting that took place on Friday in Santa Barbara. We're going to be talking about it because a lot of the news reported that the young man, the shooter, was someone who was potentially on the autism spectrum. This came right on the heels of something in the Washington Post on Thursday, suggesting that there might be a higher prevalence of individuals who are mass murderers who have either a brain trauma or potentially are on the autism spectrum. Not reported in the most responsible way. So lots to talk about today, and we are going to find some time today to talk about all of that. But as in always with autism, there's much, much more to the story and much more going on. So we're going to try to give you an update about all the questions there are, because I don't think there are any answers, and we most especially want to give our heartfelt condolences to the families involved in the shooting and for the tragic, tragic loss of life. Just absolutely devastating under any circumstances. But we do want to be responsible about talking about autism when connected to these things. So we'll find some time later on to do that. But we're going to have time to talk about a lot of other things too, some things that are much more hopeful, right? It's important to weigh everything and get both sides of the story. So we will be with you for the next 2 hours live, talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective. Whether you're a parent, teacher, practitioner, or you yourself are an individual who's on the autism spectrum, we want to help to connect you with the things that you need to get the help and the support and the growth and the progress that you're interested in making, because that's really what's key, right? When we get into providing people with choices and providing them with information, that's when we all get a little bit stronger. So we are going to focus on that today. This whole show is interactive. We do want you to participate with your thoughts and your feelings. I know a lot of you have a lot to say today. Please feel free to participate. Emily is going to show you some of the different ways that you can have a voice here with us. I'll remind you while she's showing you these things that our homepage is autism-live.com. When you go there, you have many opportunities of things to do. I hope you'll check out the blog. I hope you'll sign up for the newsletter, because we've got some things that are coming that are going to be of benefit to you on the newsletter. But we also hope you'll be watching the show. If you see on the desktop there's a computer with there's a triangle on the computer screen. If you click on the triangle, you can be watching the live show or the most recently recorded live show, and you can even click on the playlist and go back through recent shows to see a topic that you would be interested in watching. Now, to the side of all that, there's a series of white boxes. That's your key to almost instantaneous interaction. You'll see there's a box that says Shannon is answering right now. Below that is the place for your question. Put your cursor there, type whatever you want, hit enter, and it appears here on our screen with about a 2-minute lag. So I always caution you, if you want to ask our guests a question, make sure that you ask early on in their segment, because otherwise they're out the door and then I look down and see your question, right? So ask as early as you can. By the way, if you're late and I'm late picking it up, don't worry, we still have ways of asking them your questions, right? And if you're watching recorded, write in on that space and tell us, but make sure you're specific about out who it is that we're talking about so that I know who to send the question to. I'm flying blind here, and if you watch something, you might have watched it on Sunday, and I don't know which episode you watched, and you say, she had some really important information and I want to know more about it, I don't know which she you're talking about. So be as specific as you can. All right. I always like to start out by reminding you that while we'll have a great many experts on this show, I'm not one of them. And I doubt that I ever will be. Not in the field of autism. I have my credentials in autism from being a parent. My son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5. He's about to be 11 in a little less than 2 weeks. I don't know, right? It takes my breath away. But I'm a proud parent and have learned a lot of things on this journey, but I'm excited to learn more with you and by you and from you. So don't mistake me for one of the experts. I'm one of the students. I like to sit in the front row in the classroom, but not an expert. All right. Having said all of that, we're going to start this day off with something that we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, and we try to make sense of what they're talking about when they use these terms. It's an intensive jargon journey, right? At a time when a lot of us are a little overwhelmed, a little underslept, and our sense of humor is a little thin, and then somebody starts using these terms with us and we go, huh? What? What is it you're talking about? If you're like me, I like to pick up a dictionary, even like a real dictionary, an old book dictionary, and I love to Google things and find the definitions of terms. Love that. Except that with autism jargon, sometimes you Google the term and what you get is more jargon, and you fall down the jargon hole. So we like to take the word, the phrase, the acronym, give you the actual definitions so that we can make fun of it, and then we give you a working definition so hopefully you can get an idea. All right, what are we talking about, and how does that relate to my life right now, and how can that help me? That's what's most important, right? So I cannot believe it, but we've never had this term before. You ready? Because it gets used all the time. Deprivation. Okay. This is one of these tricky ones because it sounds like one thing, and we've been using this term in one way in our regular lives, and now it comes up in terms of autism and it sounds horrible, right? Because what does deprivation mean to you? To me, it's a bad state of things, right? Not necessarily with autism. So let's take a look at our actual definition. You ready? Deprivation, an establishing operation that results in increasing the reinforcing value of a particular event or stimulus and thus increases the frequency of behaviors relevant to those events as consequences, i.e., the person is more likely to engage in behaviors that have previously resulted in access to those events or stimuli in the past. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why we do jargon, right? What? What does that mean? And I think our let's see if our working definition is any better. You ready? Working definition. Deprivation, when a child's access to something is withheld or restricted for a period of time. Make sure you, period of time, not forever. Resulting in that thing seeming even more desirable to them. Increasing the chance that the child will engage in behaviors that have previously resulted in access to those things. All right, it still gets a little convoluted. So what are we talking about here? Your child loves Buzz Lightyear. Just absolutely loves Buzz Lightyear. Would do almost anything to play with his Buzz Lightyear. He wants to have his Buzz Lightyear. And if he has access to it all the time, then he's going to be a happy camper. And we want our kids to be happy campers, right? And we're not talking about making a child miserable. We're not talking about teasing them, but we're talking about every once in a while when the child, we're not snatching it away from them, right? But maybe the child lays down and take a nap and we put Buzz Lightyear out of sight, out of mind, right? For a little period of time. Because what happens when we take that maybe 15 minutes later, because we're not talking about, again, we're not talking about making the child miserable, but we bring the Buzz Lightyear out and we say, do you want to play with Buzz Lightyear? Can you say Buzz, right? Because we're trying to get the child to talk. And the child now wants Buzz Lightyear, so they're going to try to overcome all the things that have been stopping them from saying Buzz. They want to work for the reward of Buzz Lightyear. And as soon as they say Buzz, or whatever the thing is that we're having them do, we're going to give them the toy. We're taking things that are reinforcing and we're making sure that they stay reinforcing, because if he gets to play with Buzz Lightyear all the time, he's probably not going to need to work as hard to be able to get the Buzz Lightyear back. So Buzz might take 6 months, whereas if we just take Buzz and put him away for a short period of time, then when he sees Buzz, he just misses him that much more. Absence makes the heart grow fonder, right? That's kind of what this whole principle is. And again, it's so important that we not abuse deprivation. This is not about we take Buzz Lightyear and put him away for a week. That's a punishment. That's not going to help us at all, right? The child's going to have a tantrum, a meltdown. We don't want that. But talking about a small period of time, the child loves chocolate cake, right? What happens if we feed a child chocolate cake for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? You can love chocolate cake, but you can have enough of it, right? We want to set up a circumstance where it's a treat and where they're willing to do something that might be a little bit hard for them and overcome that in order to get the treat. And we can't do that if it's there all the time. My son loved, they were like short little cartoons that he absolutely loved. But if I let him watch them endlessly, then he wasn't going to work for them, right? But we set up a circumstance where he could work for and get the little cartoon and was a happy camper. If you're doing creating a state of deprivation correctly, it is rewarding for the child. So if it's making them miserable, check what you're doing, back up, and do it a little bit differently. It's not about torturing them at all. Think of it on the opposite side. It's got to be just enough time so they go, oh, I want to play with that, not where is it? Ben forever, right? That's the big difference. Deprivation, though, can be a very powerful tool to set a child up for success. All right? Deprivation, it's a good thing, not a bad thing. All right, we always ask you a question. We have a question of the day for you today, and we hope that you'll take a few minutes to write in on Facebook or to tweet us, and we'll try to have some time a little bit later on to look at your answers. And we want to know, if you were making a spreadsheet of your life, what would be in the plus column? Today's a really good day to start thinking about, what do we have working for us? What are you grateful for? What is solidly a good thing going on in your life? We have plenty of time to look at what's wrong, right? And we will a little bit later on in the week. But what do you have that's working for you? You might say, I got a great job. That's what's working for me. You might say, I got a great sense of humor. That's what's working for me. You might say, and bless you if you do, I've got a bunch of money in the bank account. A lot of us can't say that. That would be in the other column, right? But what else is in that plus column? You got a family that's supporting you, or you've got one person that's supporting you. What is it? What's in your plus column? Take stock and let us know, because it's good to share these things. It's good to think about what you've got going for you. It's good to be grateful, right? Especially when there's other things that aren't so good happening. And we've all got something in our plus column. So take a look at it and write that into us, and we'll hopefully have time to share that. We always have a topic of the week, and this entire week we're going to be talking about the lovely topic of using what you have. It's one of my favorite things in life is the whole idea of the ruby slippers. And, Dorothy goes through the whole movie wanting to get home and asking everyone there, how do I get home? How do I get home? How do I get home? And it seems that she's got these ruby slippers and we need to figure out how they work, and she needs this and she needs the broom and she needs all these different things, until she finally arrives at the end of the movie. And what does Glenda the Good Witch say to her? She says, oh, my dear, you've had the power all the time. I think it's a really good metaphor for our lives, that if you really stop and think about, what do you need, right? And there are always some things that we can think of that, oh, I really need this, I really need that, the laundry list of, but how often do we take the opportunity to think about, what do we already have and how can we use that? I love this idea. I think when we get into this headspace, there's just so much room for possibility. And I know that You know, right now there are so many of you who are sitting there who are feeling like you've run up against a roadblock. Either you're trying to get ABA and you don't have the funding, or you've got ABA but you don't have enough, right? There's always the thing that we have to be pushing about. That's true and that's real, but what have you got and how can you use what you've got? When you get into that mindset, I really think that's when we go crazy and make good things happen. Because we're in the now, we're in the reality of, all right, and it's positive. I've got something, how can I use that? I always love the whole thing about sometimes when we talk about doing the show in the morning, all right, let's do a show, we'll say. And I always think of those old movies with Judy Garland. It's a Judy Garland morning. And Mickey Rooney, and they'd say, I've got a barn and I've got some drums, and they would put together whatever they had. Well, you know, we may not have a barn and we may not have drums, but what do you have? What do you have and how can you use it? Let's talk about that all this week. Now, some of the things that we're going to be talking about today on the show, we've got some great guests who are going to be with us. We are going to talk a little bit about autism news a little bit later. Micaela Connery is going to be with us, and with her she has Laura McLelland, two amazing women who are going to be talking about a performance that's happening tonight, and more importantly, an organization that they work for and that they run called United Theater. You know I love theater, and you know I love what it can do for our kids on the autism spectrum. Unified, I'm saying United. Unified, excuse me. Unified Theater. I beg your pardon. Unified Theater and talking about what that can do for our kids on the autism spectrum. So, very excited to have them in just a couple of minutes. And then a little bit later in the next hour, we're going to have Caroline Wilson with us from the Autism Society of Los Angeles. And she was slated to come in and talk with us about the self-determination bill that recently passed here in California. We are going to talk about that, about what's happening now and what you need to know. Even if you're not in California, this is really important legislation as our kids get older, and even no matter what age your child is, being able to pick and choose the services that you have so that you get something that's right for you. This is not a one-size-fits-all community, right? So Caroline is also going to be with us for that, but I'm hoping to have a conversation with her about some of this coverage, this new report that came out in the Washington Post, the new study, and what the implications are and how it's being reported, because there has been some good reporting over the weekend, but some very irresponsible reporting about the autism spectrum and what that may mean. So, and the fallout that will be there for all of us who have children on the spectrum. We're going to talk about all of that and ever so much more, including your questions, comments, and concerns. So start writing in now. Let's keep the conversation going. We're going to take a break, and we're going to be right back with Laura McLelland and Micaela Connery. Stick with us.
When you find out you're having a boy, you always think like, oh, he's going to play football, he's going to do this and that. And then when he's diagnosed, all those things get washed away.
It's like that piece that's always in the back of your mind, you know, where is he, what is he doing, is he safe?
We really didn't know what we were dealing with. I wish that they could have directed me a little bit more and provided me some information.
I was a young mom. I didn't know what it was like to raise a boy, despite a boy with autism.
Hundreds of thousands of families are not getting the help they need for their children with autism all around the country. ACT Today is determined to bridge the gap. These families really have to go through a lot to get a grant. The application process isn't easy. The records, the diagnosis proof, they're really battling for their kids. So when we can give them a grant, it is so wonderful to see that they succeed in getting that help for their children. Our founder, Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet, is an amazing woman, and she is one of the world's foremost authority on behavior of children with autism. She's extremely knowledgeable, and she oversees every single grant we give. She is part of that process. People may think of autism care and treatment as simply schooling or therapy, but we provide important safety supports, things like fencing, for example. The whole family's living in fear of that child running out into traffic. I recently delivered an iPad to a little boy with some of the apps that are out there for children with autism. Miracles happen.
I got the iPad from ACT.
From ACT,
What did it say? Can you repeat that, Dustin?
I got the iPad from ACT.
We have helped so many military families, and when I think of these brave families that are fighting two battles, one to protect our country and one for the right treatment and care for their children, it breaks my heart, and I think we have to do more as a nation to help them.
There's not a day that doesn't go by that we don't think about it. Some people say, oh, he's normal. You don't see the battles that I see every single day. My husband does have to deploy, and when they get on that bus, that might be the last time that my kids ever see them.
So I called and they informed me that he had received the grant, which was like a blessing from above. I was just like speechless. I just started to cry because, you know, without it, we would have been lost.
The ACT grant was a total miracle. Without that, we wouldn't be able to receive the service dog. So we're so appreciative what they've done for us as a family.
Recently, ACT Today funded a program for military children with autism in San Diego, the Inclusion Films program, which is run by Joey Travolta, and teaches kids on the autism spectrum literal filmmaking skills. They learn how to make a movie.
Are we ready? There you go, got it. Okay. Everything that goes into the process of making a film goes into everyday life. So they're learning life skills, they're learning to collaborate.
It was really nice to know how much they were enjoying this camp, and they're with people who are supporting them and are making them feel great about themselves and their differences and their similarities. And I get two kids that are working together and apart and together and apart, so it's an interrelationship as well as a camp and a learning experience.
It's so fulfilling when I get letters. One stands out for me, a boy who was 14 with Asperger's, and we gave him a grant to go to a drama camp. He wrote to us and said, "Dear ACT Today, thank you for letting me belong for the first time in my life." These kids are remarkable. You know, we underestimate them. They're so knowledgeable, they're so capable, and we can change the life of a family, which means changing the life of a community.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Our very special guests who are from the Unified Theater. I got it wrong before, but the Unified Theater. Very excited to have you here. We have Micaela Connery and Laura McLelland. And so tell us what the Unified Theater is.
So Unified Theater is an organization. We've been in existence for 12 years. I actually started when I was 15 as a club in my high school, and now is a national not-for-profit that has served young people with and without disabilities in 60 schools. And I think, you know, our core really is about three values: empowering youth to lead, letting creativity rule, and putting the spotlight on ability. So in all of those schools across the country, our programs are entirely youth-led, youth-written, youth-directed, youth-choreographed, youth-designed, you name it, the young people do it. The second piece is that we're obviously an arts theater organization, so we really love giving kids their first, or maybe, you know, adding to their already existing theater participation, but also doing it in a way that's creative enough that kids can experience. If they're not, you know, definitely interested in acting, they can sing or do music. If they're not interested in being on stage, they can do behind the scenes work. They can do directing. They could do, you know, we had schools do digital trailers for their show or photography. So there's all kinds of arts being incorporated into that core theater production process. And then the third is putting the spotlight on ability. So we are all about making inclusion a reality in these schools and communities, and doing it in a way that focuses on ability and what young people of all abilities can do, not what they can't. And we do that through a very specific model of inclusion where we kind of reject any sort of labels or roles or partners or special friends, and we say, let's bring all young people together as equals. Let's empower them for what they can do. Let's create natural environments where kids can create natural and lasting relationships and focus on, you know, lifting people up rather than highlighting their disability or treating them sort of special or separate. It's been a really impactful program in the schools that we've worked.
So Laura, tell us about what age range is this ideal for?
So we work primarily with middle and high school students, and that's really because, as Micaela said, the program is entirely student-led. So we want young people that are old enough and mature enough to take on real leadership responsibilities. There's an adult in the room, but they do almost nothing. It's really the students taking on everything from director to choreographer to our inclusion specialist, whose job is really to get to know all the young people and figure out how to incorporate each of their special abilities into our original shows.
And so if somebody's watching this and they think, wow, this sounds amazing, this sounds like the ideal thing to have in my child's middle school or my child's high school, how do they make that happen?
So we are actually out here in LA doing our first little incubator program, which we're really excited about for tomorrow night. Tonight, yeah, actually. It's here. So fast. We've been working with 15 young people from this area, and we've just had so much excitement and enthusiasm for Unified Theater here in LA. So we will be starting to do outreach. We'd love to hear from parents and administrators, anybody who's excited about Unified Theater. Contact us at unifiedtheater.org, and we can send people all the information they need about getting a program up and running at their school.
All right. And so you've got a performance tonight. So how long were you working with these 15 individuals? It's a pretty quick amount of time, right?
Yeah, we rehearsed one brainstorming session last weekend, and then over Memorial Day weekend, the kids rehearsed Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and they have their final run through today. So we call this a flash production because it came together in a flash, but they've got a really lovely piece, and they've generated some great stories, and there's music, and they've done some beautiful set and prop pieces, so it's going to be really fun.
Really amazing. And one of your performers is somebody who's very near and dear to us here on the show, Wyatt.
We love Wyatt.
And Nancy Alspaugh Jackson's son will be performing tonight, and I'm going to see if I can't get there to see this because we love Wyatt, and I can't wait to see what you guys have done. So again, the website that they need to go to?
Is www.unifiedtheater.org.
Okay. We're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back and ask some more questions about how this all works, because I'm intrigued. I want this in my son's school. So stick with us. More after these messages.
Hello, activist. Let's talk about step 8. State your intention. Conceive it, believe it, achieve it. Author Napoleon Hill wrote that 100 years ago. The Power of Positive Thinking. Norman Vincent Peale wrote that 60 years ago. See, practicing positive focused thought has been around a long time, long before The Secret came about. That's because practicing positive focused thinking really works. Think about when you drive somewhere in your car. You don't just go around in circles. You have a destination, right? I mean, sure, there's going to be speed bumps and detours along the way, but you know where you're going. State what you want to achieve. Say it aloud, write it down. I have Post-its on my computer. One says, get Wyatt all the treatment and therapy he needs to reach his full potential. Step 2, help other families. The focus part is really important because I realize that in this lifetime, I'm not going to be elected president or become a rock star, but I'm doing okay on those first 2 steps. Live in a state of knowing you will reach your goals for you and your child. Until next time, keep the faith.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Our very special guests here in the studio with us, Laura McLelland and Micaela Connery. They are from the Unified Theater. Very exciting project. I'm sitting here looking at this handbook that you guys brought with you. This is what the students actually get when you're there doing a program.
Correct.
It's amazing. Some of the things that, I mean, it's a whole workbook, you guys, of things to do, ways to brainstorm, gives them lots of information. This is a lovely, how long did it take you to put this together?
We have a really amazing director of programs named Sarah, whose background is drama therapy, and so she has just been instrumental for us in really enriching and strengthening our curricular piece of our program.
I gotta say, for people who are out there watching, you've got kids that are in middle school or high school, we know that in all of our state standards and now in the core standards, there are performance requirements, and that's all been cut. The ability for that to be done, the teacher has to take it on, and a lot of times it gets short shrift. And we know for our kids, this is stuff that is so important. Whether they're going to go into theater and be actors or not, essential life skills. Even Temple Grandin says one of the best things you can do for your kids is have them take a theater class. Can you get a better recommendation than Temple Grandin, right?
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about what the process is. You go into the classroom. You were saying that for this performance tonight that it was a very short period of time. Is that a flash crash project you were saying. Is that always the case, or do you sometimes spend a little bit more time?
No, so this is the first time that we've ever done it in such a short period of time. Laura can share more about actually normally our groups have a whole training and it lasts a full year, a full semester of training and everything, and the actual production process happens over 8 to 12 weeks. So normally it's a longer period, but we're testing this kind of what can happen in a weekend, which is kind of neat.
Yeah. So once we come back here to LA and start working with schools on a normal basis, what we'll do is work in the after-school space in middle and high schools, and we'll work with schools to recruit a great group of student leaders, and they'll actually come to us. We'll have a big regional training where 5 or 6 schools will come together with all their student leaders, because we like to make it a big production. It's a really special thing to be a unified theater student leader. And we run them through a full day of training because we want them to have all of the tools they need to go back and really be those student leaders and take on all of their responsibilities. So we start with a section called Get Excited, where they just get really into the day and we teach some networking skills. Then we go into a Get Included curriculum where we talk to them through and also do some theater exercises and visual art exercises so they really understand what we mean when we say inclusion. Then we go into Get Creative, where in every city we work in, we partner with an affiliate theater, and their teaching artists come in and run a brainstorming exercise and help the students learn how to create their own original show. And then we end the day with a Get Going games, where we reinforce skills like recruitment, fundraising, marketing, everything they need to do from the production standpoint to put on their own show.
Now, in most cases, I would imagine for those student leaders, you're talking about kids who are not on the spectrum, but sometimes there are?
Sometimes they are, yeah.
Absolutely.
So we encourage student leaders of all abilities, and one thing we try to do, not any sort of tokenistic, you have to have one student with a disability, but we have most of our schools have at least 1 or 2 or maybe more that we don't actually know what their disability is, that are student leaders.
Well, I love this, though, because it is inclusion and you're teaching those kids what inclusion is. One of the things that we talk about on the show endlessly is how important inclusion is, but only if it's done correctly, which is the hard thing.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And we keep talking about how do we train the adults to do inclusion, but I love this model because you're just bypassing that and teaching the kids how to do inclusion. And really, that's the key.
Well, and it's fun to see teachers say, like, their faculty advisor goes through that Get Included training with them, and we've had many teachers come up after training and go like, wow, I never thought of when I use this language or use this term, and that actually, maybe takes away the inclusiveness of what I'm doing, and so they're learning too. But yeah, let's get these young people to be champions of inclusion, and then they can bring it to their schools, they can bring it to their colleges, they can bring it to their place of employment, they can bring it out into the world, and they're a little foot soldiers.
and you
ambassadors of inclusion.
Ambassadors of inclusion. I love it. But I also love all the things that you listed off. It would be all too easy for people to say, oh, it's theater, and how is this really going to help with life skills? But look at the things that you just ticked off about being fundraising, being responsible, being a leader. I imagine at some point you're working, on all, you were talking about the teamwork that's involved. At some point, though, they also have to work on being able to talk to other people.
Absolutely.
Huge life skills for everyone.
For everyone.
For everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I'm always dismayed when we're in a point when it comes down to the crunch money-wise and we cut the arts. Can't think of a single civilization that lasted very long that said, oh, we just aren't going to worry about the arts. Doesn't seem to work. So remarkable. What are some of the success stories that of schools that you guys have gone into? Just give us a little taste of what can happen at a school when you do this kind of a program.
So I'm biased because I have one school. I actually started Unified Theater in high school, and when I started it was 12 kids. It was a small program. It was sort of this niche thing. We met in the tiny little choir room, and now that school is getting ready for their 12th annual show, and they have 240 kids performing. Wow. It is the most diverse and the largest, most after-school activity in the district. And I say diverse not just in that it includes kids with and without disabilities, but you look on that stage and you see every single kid from the school represented, and to me that's really exciting. And to also see kids who never really, I think the way that Unified Theater does inclusion is accessible to kids who, I have a cousin with disabilities, so inclusion is you know, in my blood. It's like what I believe and live. And I think that that's intimidating for some kids. And the way that the Unified Theater process works is that everybody can come in and there's an expectation that we're all going to learn together. And the only skill you need to have is an openness and an ability to work with others and be kind. And so we attract all sorts of kids who have maybe never even interacted with someone with a disability and then leave the show. I had this one girl pull me aside when I was doing a rehearsal visit and say, "Miss, how do I work with these kids?" And I'm like, "What do you mean these kids?" She goes, "You know, kids like, you know, so-and-so with disabilities." And I said, "Oh," and we had this long conversation about you could work in a group home, you could be a teacher, you could be a social worker, you could be work for a nonprofit. And to see a kid like that now take an interest in a lifelong path towards inclusion is cool.
It's wonderful. And when we talk about a big subject here on the show is bullying, and I am, you know, and about what are we going to do about it, and how are we going to circumvent it. And I would imagine that this is one of the most effective ways that you could deal with bullying.
We actually got a great email from a parent just the other day talking about her son who was in the lunchroom and having a moment and started doing I think it was the "We Will Rock You" chant,
Little
right?
Queen.
You know, boom, boom, boom. And instead of everybody, you know, bullying him or calling him names or telling him to stop, all of the kids around him started doing it with him so that he wouldn't get in trouble until he had calmed down and sat down. And then they all just proceeded to eat lunch together. So Unified, we really feel like our students are taking it out into the school, changing the school culture, and really making the entire environment they exist in a more inclusive place.
What a wonderful thing. Well, I kind of want to clone the two of you so that you can be everywhere at all times. Where's the money component? How are you funding this?
So we have some really generous corporate sponsors. We work with State Farm Insurance.
Go State Farm.
Yeah, they're awesome. Coca-Cola. I'm going to forget others.
Newman's Own
Foundation. They're a private foundation out of Connecticut. Alex and he's huge. So we're always looking for more corporations to get involved. And generous individuals were some of our earliest funders and continue to sustain the program. You know, it was funny. With this LA program we had a parent email us and just say, "I wanted my son who has autism to do theater for so long, and the only programs I could find for him were $2,000 to get him involved. This program costs kids $25.
Wow.
And our school programming, when a team comes to training, the only cost they pay for Unified Theater is a $550 training fee for that team of 5 students and 1 teacher, plus a $200 startup fee. So this is pennies for schools, so we have to subsidize that through individual donors and corporations, so anybody.
And I think a lot of what our fundraising goes to is scholarships and grant dollars so that we can make sure that cost is never a barrier to participation in the program.
Wow. Well, it's remarkable. I love everything you're saying. I love it more and more. So you've got a performance tonight, and you said 12 kids?
15.
15 kids. And it is also inclusion tonight?
Yeah.
All right. And how did you find these 15 kids?
So we actually were originally connected to the Chime Charter School here in LA, and we're just blown away by their inclusiveness and all the great stuff they're doing. And they had some interest in Unified Theater, but weren't, ready to do it this year. So we said, what if we try to pilot a little mini program over Memorial Day weekend, but it won't just be for you all. Let's open it up to other schools in the area. So we've got a core group of kids from Chime, and then 5 other schools beyond that our director of programs who handles California, pushed out to a different listservs and groups. So we've got a really nice group of kids. And our hope is that they'll go back now and start the full Unified Theater program in their schools. And I have to say, after the first rehearsal, the kids are leaving, and kids and parents are already saying, and they've been with us for only a few hours on the first day, and they're like, how do we get this at our school? So that's a good sign. And they still seem to like it after spending a weekend with us.
There we go. You guys have to be exhausted. That's a long, long weekend.
It's fun. It's exhaustingly energetic. No.
All right. And if people are watching us live, the performance tonight is at the Whitefire Theater?
Yep.
7:30.
7:30.
Okay. Cost to get in?
Free. Donations are accepted, but it's free.
Love you guys. Unified Theater, again, the website?
Is www.unifiedtheater.org.
Okay, really, really remarkable. I love what you're doing. Can't wait to get this in my son's school.
Yes.
All right.
Can't wait.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back for more of Autism Live after these messages.
Hi, I'm Ryan with Autism Research Group. We study ways to improve the lives of kids with autism. One of those ways is teaching safety skills, such as what to do if they get lost. We hit the streets to find out if anybody knows the correct answer on how to teach a kid what to do if they get lost. You're teaching the child
what to do if they get lost.
Yeah, you're trying to make them independent so they have the skills.
Gotcha. Okay.
Well, give them a compass. Code name's good idea. Centurion.
We always have this whistle.
Oh, I'd also tell the kid, don't get scared. You're gonna be all right, man. This is just the world. This is planet Earth. You're at home here. As long as you're on planet Earth, you're at home.
As long as you're on planet Earth, you're home. This guy's a genius. With that flawless logic, he just solved our homeless problem. And as for the unique sounding whistle, although very cool, it'll probably only work if you're in close proximity. And a compass?
I have her call me.
Yeah, she doesn't have a phone. Parents are like, you're too young, you don't need a phone.
Establish some sort of like meeting place.
What if they can't find a meeting place? Because sometimes the kids get nervous when they get lost.
Yeah.
So like a backup plan,
Well,
plan B.
Yeah, I don't know. No, not really.
Let them go and find a new kid.
Yeah, I've got a different one. Yeah.
There's not much you can do.
There is stuff you can do.
Right?
That's right, there is stuff you can do. In 2012, myself, along with my colleagues, Dr. Jonathan Tarbox and Dr. Adele Nadowski, published a study in the Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis on teaching kids what to do when they get lost. The study demonstrated how 3 simple things, rules, role-playing, and praise, were effective in establishing these help-seeking behaviors. The benefit of this method is it doesn't require the child to have a cell phone or to have to locate a meeting place, which might be difficult if they're in a place like Disneyland. So once again, our method included rules, role-playing, and praise. Let's head back outside and learn about some of these rules.
They should yell out loud. Can't find my mom, help me.
Maybe yell out and scream for help.
All right, scream really loud,
Correct.
And if that doesn't work, then
I don't know.
well, they could seek help from someone.
Find an adult.
Go to a vendor, and say I'm lost.
Find an adult, like a police officer or a fireman or an employee in the store, and tell them, and maybe they can help you contact your parent. It really is that simple. You don't need to get your kid a cell phone. You don't need to establish a meeting place that they might not be able to find when they're lost and panicking. And you definitely don't need to give them a compass. All your kid has to do is 3 things. First, yell mom or dad real loud. 2, if that doesn't work, find an employee. And then 3rd, tell the employee they're lost. If they can't locate an employee, then tell them to find a mother with children, because that's probably the safest person to approach. I'm not saying that most men are predators, but most predators are men. That is a fact. I've read it in a fortune cookie. All right, so you've gone over the rules with your kid, and you've quizzed them, and they're able to tell you the correct responses so they understand the rules. But is that enough? How do you know they're gonna perform correctly in a real-world setting? You need to get out there and find out if they can actually do it. So you'd go over the rules and tell them, like, do this, do that, but how would you know if they actually knew what to do? If you wanted to shoot a basketball, and I just told you, oh, when you shoot a basketball, do this, this, and this.
I never practice.
You never practice. Yeah, so it doesn't matter how many times we go over the rules or how well you can repeat them back to me. It's not going to change until you get on the court and practice.
Maybe do like a, a little skit with them.
Like a role play?
Role play, yeah.
Your child, you're lost in the toy aisle.
Okay.
What do you do? I'm an attendant, walking around.
I'm lost, I don't know where my mom is.
And then once you practice, you just like praise them, give them feedback, like, good job, you did it.
Like reinforcing it.
Yes, this woman wins the prize for best comment. She pointed out the most important part of learning, reinforcement. Now, in our study, we used praise, but for your kid, you might have to use something else. You might have to buy them a treat, a toy, take them to their favorite restaurant where they can eat unhealthy food and run around and climb through plastic tunnels that have the unmistakable scent of urine, and then play games, spending $20 to get a plastic little spider ring that they will eventually lose in a ball pit. The point is, you need to reward your child for correctly demonstrating what you've been teaching them.
Okay, I'm gonna call her. Hello, your child, Ryan is missing. There you go.
Woohoo!
Yay!
So you tested it out
I'll
in the
try.
store to make sure I knew it. I had the rules,
Yes.
we role played it, and you made sure I knew it, and then like you said, good job, and all that. Now we're good to go.
We're good to go.
All right.
Done?
High five right there.
Yeah.
So there you have it. Give your child the rules, get out there and practice, and reward your child for responding correctly. For more information, please visit us online at autismresearchgroup.org. I'm Ryan Bergstrom. Thanks for watching. Yes, Yes, this woman wins the first. Yes, this woman. Yes, this woman wins the best. Yes, this woman wins the first place. Yes, this woman wins. Why can't I say woman? Yes, this woman wins. What's the line? Yes!
Welcome back to Autism Live. Two incredible women with two incredible programs, something so hopeful. I wanted to take a couple of seconds to talk about, on Thursday, we asked all of you if you could change one thing, what could you change? And it's, you know, I mean, Thursday was not a good day. Friday was not a good day for the autism community, right? But very interesting, some of the things that people wrote in. Love, autism will not define my son, a wonderful viewer that we've had on the show as well. She said, that's easy. I could change everyone's negative outlook on autism. Sick and tired of all the negative crap from both people in and out of the autism community. Those outside our bubble may not get it, but those inside our bubble need to step up and support each other more. They're supposed to understand. Being an autism parent is hard. Being a single autism parent is even harder. I personally don't need the show that we did with Dr. Grant Boucher. Both those episodes are available on our YouTube page. I love somebody else who said, not a you-know-what thing. Not a darn thing. There we go. Somebody else who says the attitude of neurotypicals. And I count myself as one of those. You know, I'm constantly learning here about what is appropriate and what isn't. And I love it when you guys school me. Look, I know in my heart that the last thing I would ever do is deliberately hurt somebody's feelings or exclude them. I would never want to do that. And when you guys tell me that some of the language that I use does that, I appreciate being told that. And I believe that there are other neurotypicals who would like to know that information too. Somebody else who says, unfortunately, there is no support for each other. Too many autistic adults and parents of autism just stay in the shadows, hoping our problems will go away by their own. I've spoken about this before. It's so sad, and I so much understand what you are saying. I believe that's about what Autism Will Not Define My Son was saying. Help my child to eat better so he can lose weight and find us a home of our own. Mike Hipple, another wonderful viewer. Mike, I believe you're watching today. He said, I'm always sad when I read for some parent who has a child or an adult without any support coming in to help the parents out. Hope, 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 and for every parent from Wisconsin. Someone else who's asking for no regression. Someone else says, people's attitudes towards people with autism, they should put themselves in their shoes and see if they like to be treated different. They would soon change their opinions and have more respect and understanding of people with autism. Someone else who says the school system, it goes on and on. Another person who says better support in every state. If the states don't value our children, then how can we expect the uninformed masses to understand or value our special babies? I agree. And we are going to talk a little bit in just a few minutes about the events that happened on Friday. And honestly, the events that happened on Thursday, because when the Washington Post put out an article, which we'll talk about in a minute, suggesting in their headline that mass murderers are more likely to have autism or a brain injury. That's incendiary, right? Mike wrote in this morning and said, I'm so tired that every time something happens bad, the TV guys, they have autism, and they say that's why they did it. So we're going to be talking about this a little bit. Our special guest, Caroline Wilson, is going to be with us from Autism Society of Los Angeles. And we're going to dissect a little bit, it's going to be after the top of the hour, about some of these things that have gone on in the last week. And hopefully, I know we're going to ask some more questions. Honestly, at this point in the game, I think what bothers me most in the media is that people put things out as if they are complete and total facts, and then we hear something else, and then there's something that contradicts that. I wish sometimes that they would just sit for a moment and say, we don't know, we don't know, we don't know, because the truth of the matter is there's a lot we still don't know about what happened on Friday. We're starting to piece together a series of different things, but I don't know about the rest of you. I have more questions than I have answers. But we will talk with Caroline Wilson about that. And Anyway, we're going to take another break, and we'll be back with some more before we do all of that, so stick with us.
Hi guys, welcome back to Smarty. This month we're going to be making a mandala. Mandala, you ask? What's that? Well, in Sanskrit, that means circle. And you'll see what I mean in just a moment. Okay, the materials you'll be needing for this project are colored paper, scissors, and glue. I'm assuming a lot of you guys have made paper snowflakes before. Well, this is the same idea, except for we're going to be doing it with A, lots of color, and then B, we're going to be layering it up. So, first step we're going to have to do is fold a piece of paper so when we cut it out, there's going to be a repeating pattern on it. So what you're going to do is fold it in half. And then you're going to fold it in half again. Make sure your lines are super creased. Okay? And you're going to keep doing this. You're going to keep folding it in half as many times as you can possibly fold your paper. So now that this is folded in half as many times as I physically can fold it, I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut out the excess. So here's the paper with all the excess cut off. If I open it up, boom, it's a circle, but it's missing all the wonderful patterns in here that repeat. So let's fold it back up. And what we're gonna do now is we're gonna cut the shapes in it, kind of like a snowflake. So get creative here. Remember, circle, and let's open it up. Look at that, it's another circle, but it's smaller. I'm gonna take this and place this in the inside. So the basic idea of the mandala is you're gonna take your construction paper, fold it like I just showed you, and then cut different sized triangles, which will turn into circles, so there'll be layers of colors with the pattern. And of course, while you're doing this, you can talk about colors and to have them work on their cutting skills. So now that I've cut out several snowflakes, I am going to start gluing them down on a piece of paper. Here's my mandala. It looks pretty finished, and it can be. But if you have an older kid and you really, really want to hone in on working on pattern making, you can take this little scrap pieces that you cut out and have them add to the pattern themselves. Well, I hope you and your child enjoyed this project and learned a lot from it. Until next time, guys, craft on.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live. We had recently on the show Shelly Hendricks from Autism Votes, and she asked all of us to take 5 minutes out of our every day to advocate, however you see fit, and that could be having a conversation with someone at the grocery store and letting them know, because you know sometimes one by one we get things done, or whether it's writing a letter to your legislators. They have a new program now, Autism Votes, that they want you to know about. You can text A-VOTES to 30644. When you do that, it automatically signs up your phone to get alerts, mobile alerts that will let you know when there's something that's happening that they can use your help. Okay, so A votes to 30644. There are a couple of things that are on the agenda right now that they're asking for help and support. One is for the state of North Carolina, that they could use, if you're in the North Carolina area, they can use some people calling legislators. If you know people who live in the state of North Carolina, if you would write to them and say, hey, can you talk to your legislators? It's important that they get more people talking about how critical it is to get care and to continue it. But also the Combating Autism Act is up for renewal, and so Autism Votes is asking for your help and support in the next coming months. So if you will text A-VOTES to 30644, my understanding is that we will all start getting mobile alerts when there's something that we need to know about. Just makes it that much easier, so you don't even have to check your email to know. And one of the things that I do appreciate from Autism Votes is that they make it very easy. They give you templates that if you don't have the time to go through and write a letter, there's one there and you can customize it if you want or not if you don't want to, but you don't have to spend the time searching for who are my legislators, what number do I call. It gives it to you so that you literally can get it done in 5 minutes or less. A votes 30644. Slight programming note, want to let you know that tomorrow Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh will be with us answering your questions. She's excited to be back with us tomorrow. So have your questions start coming in for her now so that we can start putting those together for tomorrow's show. Of course, you can always write in during the show, but I do like to get some questions as a prime beforehand. So that's tomorrow. And then also tomorrow during Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, Coach E, Elaine Hall, will be with us. It's like theater week here at Autism Live, and you know I love that. So Coach E will be with us tomorrow talking about the Miracle Project. You remember that Coach E is the one who did Autism the Musical, and she continues to have some pretty impressive things going on, including a grant from the NEA for some theater programs that they're going to be doing this summer. So she's going to be here with us talking about that. We're very excited to have her here. That's all happening tomorrow, and Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson will be with us as well, having just come from her son being in the Unified Theater performance, which will be tonight. All right, we are going to take a break now and go to the A Word. This is the ongoing documentary being made by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, following a little boy, Jack Riley, who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. At this point in the series, Jack has started to get his early intensive behavioral intervention, ABA, of the highest quality in his home, and we get to see he's already making progress, but you see the arc of this, that they start to work on something and the many different ways that they have to work on that skill to make it completely his own. And we see that it's not easy for him, not easy for the therapist, and not easy for his family, his parents, but it's so incredibly worthwhile when we see the progress that's being made. But again, a little on the tough side some days. So take a look. This is the A Word.
Oh, he wants to watch the duck song. He'll want to do it for an hour. Okay. Okay, Turk. One time duck song, okay?
Mike warns Jack Riley that he will be allowed to watch the duck song one time only. He does this so Jack Riley can anticipate what will happen once the song finishes. Transitions are difficult for him and others with autism because they have a hard time anticipating what comes next. Because of this, they have a hard time planning ahead and being flexible. These skills are considered executive functions.
You guys have to watch this. Duck song. Oh my gosh! I gotta turn the music. I gotta turn the sound up.
And he said to the man, run in the stand, hey, bump, 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 got any grapes? The man said, look, this is getting old. I mean, lemonade's all we've ever sold. Why not give it a go? The duck said, how about no?
How about no?
Then he waddled away, waddle, waddle. Then he waddled away, waddle, waddle, waddle. Then he waddled away, waddle, waddle. Till the very next day.
So what go? Okay, go. Why not give it a go? Yay!
All done.
Say bye-bye, duck.
Bye-bye, duck.
Bye-bye, duck.
Bye-bye. No. Oh, no.
Bye-bye, duck. Later.
You know, anger's a cool thing at different times, but not right now.
Hey, we'll watch it again later. Say bye-bye, duck. Bye-bye, duck.
Bye-bye, duck.
Say, I'll miss you. I'm sad.
I'm sad.
I'm sad.
I'm sad. I'm sad.
Okay.
Learning how to transition is a life skill. Every day, one is constantly transitioning from one activity to the next, and he needs to cope with changes without tantrums and not be fixated on doing the same activity repetitively. Watching the duck song is incredibly reinforcing for him, and he needs something just as interesting to transition to.
Hey, Jack, here's Dad waddling. Waddle, waddle. Waddle away, waddle, waddle. Waddle away, waddle, waddle.
There you go.
Oh, the big old shark's gonna get you.
I'm gonna swim and get you. I'm gonna get you.
Yeah, he's been really good about saying what he wants lately. We've really been pushing language a lot.
More shark. More shark.
More shark. Okay, ready? More shark.
What should we play?
Tozzle. Tozzle? Well, tozzle's for brushing your teeth. Do you want to brush your teeth? Tozzle's this game on his iPod that he only gets when he brushes his teeth. Say, Mommy, I want Tozzle.
You want Tozzle?
I don't know if that means he wants to brush his teeth.
It means he wants Tozzle, but sometimes we brush his teeth to get him to get it. Show me E. Show me ah. Good job. He doesn't like it when I look because he knows I'm going to take it away. I'll count you down before I take it away, okay?
Cheryl's tactic to help Jack Riley transition to the next activity is to count him down. He understands that once she reaches 1, that the preferred item will be taken away.
No lollygagging. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ready? Okay. Toothbrushing. We're gonna go like this. Hey, that's not how we do it. Watch Mommy. Can you do that? Do that. 1, 2, 3. Yay! Good job.
Yay, Jack Riley, you
Good
Tozzle.
job.
That was pretty good.
5, 4, 3. Sit down.
Hi, buddy.
Sit down.
Brushing.
3, 2, 1. Yes, I know you know. Okay, we're gonna go bottoms. Like that, okay? Ready? You can do it. 1, 2, 3. Yay!
You did it, Jack.
Good job.
Good job, Jack.
Jack Riley, we're gonna say bye-bye to Tozzle. Are you ready? Can you give me Tozzle? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, give it to Mommy, please. Good boy. I know it's hard, isn't it? Can you march back to Mommy? March, 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 march. Yay! A taste of honey. Taste of honey. And you hug your mommy. That's kind of nice. You want your ears kissed or your nose? Ears. Ears. You want your ears kissed or your eyes? Eyes.
No.
You want your ears kissed or your chin? Chin. Where's your chin?
Ears.
Ears?
Welcome back to Autism Live. So excited that we have with us in the studio, this is a rare treat, Caroline Wilson is here with us. She's the Executive Director of the Autism Society of Los Angeles. So thrilled to have you here today.
Great to be here.
And you were scheduled to be here anyway, but when all these events transpired over the weekend, I thought, oh, I'm so glad that she's going to be here on Tuesday so that we can be talking about some of this stuff responsibly. Yeah. And by this stuff, first of all, there was the reporting in the Washington Post on Thursday of a study that raises some very disturbing ideas. And then, of course, on Friday, as we know, a shooter at UC Santa Barbara killed 6 people and injured, I believe, 7 more. One of the things that on the show, I try never to say the name of the shooter because I just don't want to give attention, you know, and glorify that. So we will refer to him, if it's okay with you, as the shooter. Really devastating back-to-back events because then it started being reported that the shooter was on the autism spectrum, and in at least a couple of outlets, even if it wasn't, it was implied that that might be why this happened, and that sends a chill down my spine as a parent and as a person walking this earth. It's the kind of thinking that's so black and white and not based in reality that it really gives me pause. So I want to start, Caroline, with you talking to us about what your takeaway from these events are.
Well, one of the things is that, you know, you always cringe, and I know you probably do, when the news comes out and you're going, okay, they're going to blame Asperger's or autism on this. Yeah. And I think one of the reasons why that is getting to be so prevalent is that if you look at autism as far as a developmental disability, it's one of the few that has a social component. They have social developmental issues, and they also have social communication issues. So it's a core deficit. And one of the things we kind of do but don't really do enough of is social skills training. And so when this comes across, well, the guy was obviously odd, and he's acting odd, so therefore he must have autism. It's just like, every mass murderer has, you know, we're going to project that people with blue eyes are all going to be mass murderers. It really is a cut and dry, oh, this is simple, and it's not. It's not a simple it's not a simple concept. It's not a simple solution, and it's very, very complex. And I think putting a label on it, the concern I have in the media is they tend to use the word, oh, he has Asperger's, and they just leave it there.
Yeah.
They never explain it. They never explain why that came about, who diagnosed him, what.
Right.
You're just kind of going, oh, great. Now we're stuck with not everybody is going to commit a crime.
Right. And honestly, I read so many different articles about this, and almost every single article mentioned Asperger's, and yet some of them said that there was one report that the lawyer for the family said that he had been diagnosed with Asperger's at the age of 9. Another report where it's a very close family friend who said he was never actually diagnosed, but that the family felt that he was probably somewhere on the spectrum. Well, that's a huge difference for me. That's a huge, huge difference. And it's two people who are supposedly close to the family who you would think would have an understanding. It makes a big, big difference for me. And honestly, I think it made a big, big difference for people because of the article in the Washington Post. So maybe let's talk about that a little bit first.
The article in the Washington Post went back and looked at patterns of behavior in various mass murderers like Jeffrey Dahmer, and they looked at their history. And what came out was that they had social oddities very early on, but we have to understand that they were never diagnosed. They had no treatment. They had no support. Parents didn't know what was going on at that time. So these are people, we're going back and trying to take a look at a person's life, you know, after the fact, which is concerning. Now, the flip side is that, you know, when you slap a percentile onto it and put it out in the media, that's even more damaging because 25%.
Yeah.
Okay, 25% of 168, which is now the CDC, that is astronomically crazy. But on the flip side, for parents to know, just because your child has a diagnosis of autism or Asperger's is not the DSM criteria at this point, doesn't mean they can't act violently. And that doesn't mean they don't have enough wherewithal to act violently. So really, we have to go and say they could. But it's not this lump sum. We know that there's 25% of all people with autism. It just is so blatant and
even
blanketed.
The headline study, significant statistical link between mass murder and autism, and then comma, brain injury. To me, this is irresponsible.
It was irresponsible, very irresponsible, because it's like, that's all people are going to see.
Yeah, I mean, that jumps out at you, significant, and that's in quotation, statistical link between mass murder and autism. Absolutely devastating to me. And as you said, they're looking back through a different, and hindsight is 20/20, right?
Through a different lens. And one of the things that they didn't mention in that report, there also is abuse and neglect.
Yeah.
So if you have social oddities and then you're abused and you're neglected, which is more impactful, the social oddity or the abuse and neglect?
Right.
I mean, we know abuse and neglect is one of the things that could cause people to become violent. A history of violence in the family is something. But to put autism in front of that, you don't get to that part until the very end.
Oh, yeah, it's amazing.
It's amazing. So really, you know, it really kind of clouded it.
Well, and I'll be honest, I had a friend who called me yesterday and she said, how are you doing with all this coverage, and, you know, what is your take on it? And I said, you know, what's really disappointing to me is that we take this huge, huge leap. And I said, what if I were to say to you right now that there is a link between, there's a very real link between mass murder and your post office person, right? Because how many times when I was a kid growing up, there were several different shootings that were were tied to people who worked for the mail. And so would we all be walking around and saying, oh, well, mailmen are mass murderers?
Yes.
Because there were 2 or 3 out of however many millions of postal workers. What they came to understand was that there was a certain amount of stress that was happening at certain post offices that needed to be addressed, and they did. And I feel like there are some similarities here, because what we're seeing is that, you know, a very small percentage of people with autism, if they have a bunch of other things happen as well, are going to be people who are at risk. But that is not the community.
It's not the community. And one of the concerns about the community is that and why I'm glad the DSM, and I'm taking a leap, but I worked and looked at the DSM over and over. I feel that we're in a better place, because one of the things that happens with Asperger's is parents feel, oh, good, it's not autism, it's Asperger's. And they don't get the support they need. They wouldn't come to the Autism Society because it's Asperger's, it's not autism. So they're not getting support they need to go, and sometimes I have 2 on the autism spectrum. I have a boy and a girl, so I have boy autism and girl autism. I have, you know, they're on the higher end of the spectrum, but yet on other things they're not on the higher end of the spectrum. So it's all how we work as a community. And I think the thing that we could learn from this is come together as a community.
Yeah.
It'd be big time, because, and don't separate people as, oh, you're low functioning, high functioning, you're Asperger's, you're autism. I think that really creates a network where those parents probably didn't even think to contact us.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have even, because it's not autism. So again, you know, it's something that people are not getting the support they need when they need it.
And I think that's a really good point. As I looked at this over the weekend, and as more facts come in, and again, we don't know anything definitively at this point, right? There are still all these different conflicting reports, but it seems evident to me right now that many different ways that individual was let down, and the result of it was that an entire community was let down, and that lives were lost as a result. I feel like those parents were let down, and that individual was let down. So we're going to take a short break, but then when we come back, I'm going to ask Caroline to help us to address what we could do in the ideal circumstances. If you're having a child that's having difficulties, who can you turn to? Where can you go so that the child isn't let down, and how to be persistent so you as a parent aren't let down, so that you're not in the car racing up and knowing that the worst is happening.
I can't, right? It's really unimaginable. And they did everything in their power to help him. They did everything in their power.
Okay, so we're going to talk about what we can learn from this, because we have to learn from this. So stick with us. We'll be right back after these messages.
Hi, it's Lisa Ackerman, Talk of Facts, autism journey questions and answers that help you get down the path in your autism journey faster, easier, like the Superman that you need to be, or Supergirl. But on a serious note, one of the most common questions that I get is, what do I do when my child is a non-responder to therapeutics and medical intervention? If you have a child that's a non-responder, know this, and if you've been on the journey for a long time, there's been more research in treatments for autism since 2005 than all previous years combined. So my first recommendation for a kid, for a family that has a kid with a non-responding issue to treatments, therapies, and medical intervention, is to reevaluate the treatments that are available. Start with the basics. Go back and revisit a MAPS doctor. Get all of that baseline testing, or a good neuropsych if you need to look at the therapeutics. Start with the baseline. The second thing families need to know when they are dealing with a child that has non-responder issues is really, you're going to have to scale up. And I mean scale up the time you're spending with your resources to figure out and really become the Sherlock Holmes, to understanding what is going on, what is impeding progress, why aren't things moving forward. You really need to make sure that you have a current MRI and a current EEG. Those two tests are so extremely valuable. often they will provide clues as to what is going on and what treatments that really could help your child make the best progress they can make. Hey, there's another frequently asked question. Wish I had my magic fairy wand so everybody was a responder. It's in the shop. Maybe I'll get it next time when we get together and talk about Facts. We'll see you soon.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're here with Caroline Wilson, and she is the Executive Director of the Autism Society of Los Angeles. So thrilled to have her here with us this morning. We're talking about some of the events that transpired last Thursday and Friday. First, the article that appeared in the Washington Post with a really incendiary headline linking mass murder with autism. And then, of course, on Friday, as we all know, the shooter who took 6 lives, including his own, and then injured many, many more at UC Santa Barbara, talking about how, if we're sitting at home and watching this, what can we learn from this? If parents are having difficulties with an individual, whether they're on the spectrum or off the spectrum, and we still don't know what that shooter's status actually was, but clearly there were problems. And clearly from all reports, the parents were trying to figure out what to do. They weren't unconcerned.
Yes,
they weren't
definitely
absent. They had called the police on their child months before and said, we think, you know, some stuff is going on. The police went and questioned him, said he was charming.
And that's absolutely possible. Of
course.
And I think one of the things when we're talking about law enforcement, because Autism Society of Los Angeles works closely with LAPD and has trained LAPD officers for about 7-8 years. And one of the things that the issues that come up with what the expectations of our community is that the police officers understand and know this disability, 1. 2, that they could screen for it. But one of the things is you have to understand when they get a phone call from a parent, this is a non-conserved kid, okay? The parent has no really legal ability to put them in, to get help for them if they don't do it voluntarily. They call and they do a welfare check, and that's what they did. Are they lucid? Are they about ready to commit suicide? Are they, you know, part of that welfare check probably should have been, does he own a firearm? You know, parents could have called and said, I highly suspect he has purchased guns, he is suicidal, and he is talking about hurting other people. That would have sprung another investigation. That would have allowed them to go and get a search warrant. Because at that point, when they're doing a welfare check, they cannot search the premises unless there's something overt that happens. Right. And he was charming and said, oh, it was a misunderstanding. And I've heard this happen multiple times to people where their child is threatening to kill them, and then the police show up and they're you know, as good as gold. Yeah. Because our kids know how to do that. But it's also, you know, keeping on it and calling and saying that there is an imminent danger. And I think that you have to use their words. Imminent danger. They're talking about hurting themselves or hurting others. Yeah. And that would spawn a 5150. And they would place them in a mental hold for 48 hours.
On a lockdown.
On a lockdown.
So that you can't hurt yourself or hurt anybody else.
Correct.
And I think a lot of people hear that and you get afraid. Like, you know, am I at the point where I really need to do that? I think this weekend was a big lesson for all of us about it's much better to put somebody in a 48-hour hold than to be dealing with the kinds of things that they're dealing with now.
Correct. By far. And a psych hold is not as, you know, devastating as you might think. There are certain criteria. They get them to services. They can't release them unless they're stable. They look at their medications. But one of the things we've taught LAPD is it's not an automatic 5150 when you meet a person with autism.
Right.
It's not automatic.
Right.
You know, and that was a big thing for them to understand, because they're going, is this mental health or is it, what is it?
Right.
So we were the gap that came in and said, we'll tell you what this is and why it's not a mental health issue. But if this person is going to hurt themselves or hurt others, and that's the information the police need.
Yeah.
Imminent danger, to hurt themselves or hurt other people. And when you report it, you could suspect that he may have guns. That would have prompted more of a search warrant.
Right, and I don't know if the parents did suspect that he had guns, but
they might not.
But I have big questions about how all reports say that he was being seen by mental health professionals, that I've heard in some reports a psychologist and a social worker, that there were more than one person on the case, that they were the ones who called the parents on the evening of and said, you better look at this, and that they called the police. My question is how, if these were the kinds of things that he had been talking about, how he was allowed to get those guns he owned legally.
Well, here's how he was able to go and get this, is because in the system, you have to have triggered an admission to a psychiatric facility.
And that's the thing that causes you to not. Okay, that's information that everybody needs to have. Because as we're being told with gun control, people, you know, if something's wrong, then they aren't allowed to buy a gun.
No.
Unless they have been put in a mental facility.
And think about how difficult it is to put people into mental facilities. We have insurance issues. We have, you know, is mental health covered? You know, all these barriers to even getting them into a mental health facility. So that is their lightning rod. That's what they're looking for when they're doing a background check. Have they been admitted to a psych institute? Now, one of the things that could have happened is, would the police have ever been able to go into the system and find out that he has purchased guns? That, on top of the welfare check, may have made a difference. Who knows?
As a parent, if we have concerns about our child and our child's away to college, if we have concerns enough to call the police, if we think that they've might have a gun, we need to disclose that.
Disclose it.
And if we're not sure, 100% sure, which how could you be if your child's living away from home, maybe we need to say to the police, and I don't know whether he has a gun or not.
Or I highly suspect.
Okay.
Because a highly suspect would be, okay, this is taking it to another level. They're going to harm themselves or harm other people.
But even if you don't know, like it's something to bring it up, because then they can do the check, and then you'll be better safe than sorry.
Right. And I think one of the problems that happens with our kids going, you know, we get them through high school and we think everything's great because they graduate with a diploma, have a whole another talk about the diploma, and then we say, oh, they're going to go to go to City College. The reality is there's no support on the City College campus for them. The only thing that they provide as far as support is just, you know, intervention on tests, giving them extra time, all having to do with learning. If they want and need help, they could go to one of their clinics. Sometimes they have clinics, and say, I need help. But nothing's going to trigger that. Right. It has to be the person asking for help.
Right.
And, you know,
and there's nobody, even when they have that support and they talk about that support and it's all educational, there isn't somebody overseeing and watching their mental state.
Absolutely
we need to know
not.
that as parents.
Absolutely not. So I think when you're looking at, and I've had this happen multiple times, where parents are going, oh, great, they got a diploma, they're going to go away to state college because this is my dream and hope. Guess what? The universities and the city colleges and the UCs don't have to go and do checks on them.
Yeah.
It's not part of the system. So, you know, I think that we have to be realistic about when they turn 18, life changes. It changes for you as a parent, and it changes for them. It changes for them in the sense that they are now in charge of their mental health and of their medical health, unless you have some conservatorship on one of those powers, or you have a power of attorney.
Yeah.
So even a power of attorney or conservatorship won't allow you to go and demand that the police do something. So that is something that, you know.
So the takeaway is, if you're going to call, if things have gotten to the point where you're calling the police, make sure that you're specific with your words.
Very specific.
It's on you as a parent to bring up the fact that there may be firearms, and you don't have to know that there is to bring that up, because then at least they'll do a check to see.
Or they might. Not absolute, but might.
But we can hope that they would, and I would think in light of this case that they're going to be more interested in checking.
Yeah, I think that one also in training the LAPD, which we've had over the years, it's when you ask the first statement to a person with autism, particularly a person that's higher functioning, they give you the right answer.
Yeah.
Always the first time. Then ask them the second time, what are you doing this weekend? Who's your friends?
Yeah.
Who are you socializing with? And then everything falls apart.
Right.
But they ask one question, and they're able to fake it over that one question and present themselves in such a way. And it was really interesting. I was reading his manifesto, and he's like, I was so scared.
Yeah.
And when he was writing this, it was after, as a little kid would be scared of the police because they would thwart my plans.
Right.
And it could have all been over with.
Right.
And it's almost like, and you're reading this, like, did you hope it was all going to be over with? You know, and you were going to get some help. So, you know, I think there's a lot here that we can learn from, and there's a lot of different systems that sometimes don't work together at all.
But we have the responsibility to learn from this.
We do have the responsibility to learn from this. We owe it to the victims, and we owe it to the families.
We absolutely do, and to our kids.
And to our kids moving forward.
All right, so we're going to table this because we could go on and on about this forever. But we asked for Caroline to come here to talk about the self-determination bill and what we need to know and how we need to progress from here. So we're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back and pick her brain about that. Stick with us.
Hi, welcome to Camp Discovery, a free-to-play suite of fun, interactive learning games for kids 2 and up, designed by experts in autism. Camp Discovery will open your early learner to a world of new skills, shapes, numbers, colors, locations, emotions, and more. Let's get started.
Please choose a level.
Objects. First, Camp Discovery's Intelligent Preference Assessment determines your child's preferred reward for choosing correctly. Okay, got it. Let's play. Camp Discovery creates a motivating learning environment for your child by minimizing incorrect responses and maximizing successful ones.
Find the shoes.
Respond correctly and your child is rewarded with their favorite animations.
You did it.
Respond incorrectly and our unique prompting system guides your child to the correct answer by making it the largest choice.
That's not it. Try again. Way to go.
Continue to answer correctly and the size gradually reduces until the child makes the correct choice independently.
You win.
Success! Rewards motivate learning. Complete a round and your child is rewarded with a fun mini-game. Track your child's progress with easy-to-read graphs. Multiple settings options allow you to customize Camp Discovery to your child's unique needs. All this in one single app, the Camp Discovery app, available for free on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon Store.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We have Caroline Wilson with us. She's the Executive Director of the Autism Society of Los Angeles. We're so thrilled to have her with us this morning. Before we talk about self-determination, we had a viewer who wrote in a question. They said, good morning. Have you ever heard of someone receiving a lifetime ban from a store? The store is a very popular and successful department store that's in every state. This just happened to my friend's adult son with autism. He cursed at and kicked a store employee before they were able to escort him out safely. Do you know who I should contact to help her appeal this ban? It's so wrong on so many levels. Thank you for your advice and help. So what do you want to say about that?
Well, the reality is if they're above 18 and they kick somebody, it's a violent act, it's aggression. And they're lucky that they did not have somebody file a police report.
Yeah.
And we have, you know, it's not a violation of his rights in the sense that, you know, you can't go into a store and kick people. You just can't. You can't kick employees. You can't kick other people when you're upset. You just can't do it. So, you know, it may seem wrong, but again, when you look at it by the sense of this is an adult, you can't kick people, and the ban was probably just a way to go and appease the, not appease, I don't want to say that, but more a response for the employee and to protect them. Mm-hmm. Now, you know, why is he acting aggressively? You know, get him some treatment, get him some help. He can't be doing that in public. He needs to be out in the community. Those are all the issues you want to rally around, not whether the store violated his rights, because actually they didn't, because he acted aggressively against their employee. And
at 18, they could have filed charges. He could have been locked up. He could have been in jail.
Under 18, they could have filed.
Really?
They could have filed, yes.
And then what would happen to somebody under 18 if charges are filed?
Again, it would go through a different court. Above 18, he would be charged as an adult.
Yeah.
And whatever would come of those charges. So, you know, one of the things is that we don't have special ed malls. We don't have special ed you know, communities. We have to get our kids living in our community with understanding what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to behave, because there is no special laws that if you act aggressively to somebody in the community that you could be charged.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, it's super duper important that and I love what you said about let's rally around some of the other issues to make sure that that individual gets the help and support that they need.
Yeah, why did he kick the person? I mean,
right, that needs to be looked at and addressed, because it isn't part of autism that you will kick people.
No.
So it's not as if this is a done deal and this is how he's going to be the rest of his life. With the right intervention, that kicking will never happen again.
Right.
Unfortunately, this store is off limits, and that's a sad thing.
It's sad.
But you know, when we look at the alternatives, that he could be in jail, the ban seems much more reasonable.
Right.
So focusing.
And the ban could be lifted.
Yes, it could. If
he
enough
got the right
progress.
If
yes.
he got the right support.
But super duper important to address that about why the kicking is happening, and to understand why, so that he understands in his mind why the kicking is not something that he can ever do again.
I think we have to go and focus on the most important part when they're in the community as adults.
Yeah.
You know, if you act aggressively towards anybody, you can be charged.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, it's something that it's a different way of thinking for parents, because we've had a special ed system, everybody understands them, they have meetings,
right.
And then they become to adults, and all of a sudden it's this harsh reality that at 18, they're now, they could sign contracts, they could do all sorts of things. So it comes as a big blow to parents.
Yeah.
And you know, it's something you could prepare for.
But again, focusing on what you can do. Is really super duper important. And there is support and help for that. There's no reason why we should assume that this individual is just going to continue to kick.
Right.
Right. Absolutely something that can be
This may be a great opportunity for him to get behavioral intervention.
Yeah.
You know, that maybe he wasn't getting.
Yeah, go to your insurance company or your local whatever funding source and say, this is why we need it, and they're probably going to give it to you.
They're going to give it to you if you just almost committed a crime out in the community.
Yeah, absolutely, super important. So we had asked Caroline to come in today to talk to us about the self-determination bill. When you were last with us last October, it was a bill, and we were hoping that it was going to be signed.
And now it's a law.
And now, but help us, because we even had somebody from the regional center on talking a little bit about this, and it seems still nobody quite knows how it's going to work. So what do you know that you can share with us?
Well, one of the things we've, you know, because the Autism Society was a sponsor, so along with Disability Rights California, so we're still involved with this. We wanted a slow rollout, because you have to understand that we have to create a system underneath all this. There's lots and lots of infrastructure that has to happen, and first thing that has to happen is that we can get federal dollars, federal matching dollars through the waiver, Medicaid waiver. So that's what they're focusing now in Sacramento on, getting the right wording so that we could get dollars into the system.
Okay, can we back up for just a second? And for those people who didn't see you on the show in October, which you missed it, and you should look at it, it's on YouTube. But tell us what the self-determination bill law says and what it does for us as it is.
Basically, self-determination in and of itself is the ability to go and take charge of your life. Having the freedom over your budget, the freedom to decide what services and support you need, and basically what it's going to do as far as our law. And you could go to Autism Society LA and look at the whole law text, and I would basically have everybody do that, but because it's written fairly well. It's not a lot of legal mumbo jumbo, but basically it gives the adults and or their families the ability to go and make decisions about where those dollars are going to be for services and support. So what it will do is allow parents to go and say, I really want horseback riding therapy, even though it's not one of the things that Regional Center might pay for, but I have a really I really think this is going to benefit my child, and I want my dollars going there. So then it's making decisions and having the freedom to make decisions about where the dollars are spent.
Yeah.
So,
and that's important for everyone, because if you stop and think about how many times you've been someplace and said, what I really feel like my child needs is X, and that's different from what the child needs over here, which is Y. And who wants to make that decision? Do you want it to be somebody who's met your child for an hour twice a year, or should it be the families? So really important, especially for our young adults. There were so many young adults on the spectrum who were saying, that's not how I need support.
And one of the things, you know, you could go and with self-determination dollars, let's say that you want to go to college, but you don't, the college that you're picking doesn't have any support for you, so you have abilities to go and get somebody to support you while you're in college, where Regional Center doesn't currently necessarily have the ability to do that. There are some, more and more, we're having more groups that are able to do that, but at this point in time, it's been very limited. So you get to go and say, what are my needs right now, this year, and you write your IPP based on that, and that, what are the needs, and then, you know, this is how I want to spend my budget. So one of the things you will have is you'll have an independent facilitator who will help you find connections to the community resources, and a fiscal manager. And the fiscal manager would be doing the budget. So you get a certain amount of money that is allotted based on what your current budget is.
Right.
Okay? If there's unmet service need and then there's a lot of other needs, and like you're transitioning into the community, lots and lots of other needs, you can increase that budget. So it basically gives flexibility in the system. We have a system that has been self-determination driven, but you haven't been able to drive the budget.
Yeah.
So it's been limiting.
And even, you know, we get a lot of parents who write in and say they want to be with one provider versus another, which supposedly you always had the right to do, but they made it really difficult.
They made it very difficult, and it took too long, and
you could be left without services while you were transitioning.
Correct.
I mean, it was tough.
And we have had people that, there's been a pilot program that has gone on since '97, and there's still 200 families in the pilot. And they have been able to go and say, this just is not working out with this agency. And the next, you know, day, get another one in.
Wow.
So it really gives a lot of flexibility to a system that has been cut and completely boxed. And that's been a big issue, because on top of it, the legislature has, for the last, I would say, 10 years, significantly has cut regional center services and support down to they can only offer a small amount.
Yeah.
So this is going to give people a lot more flexibility.
So what do we need to know now? If you've got, if you're, and by the way, for those of you who are watching who are not in California, because we're in 103 countries, not even just states, right? And but we talk about California a lot, because as California goes, so goes the rest of our country, and then eventually goes the rest of the world. So this is important to all of you. It may seem like it's really far away right now. I know a lot of times people write in and say, you know, sometimes we crab about the things in California because they're not where they need to be, and somebody will write in from Utah and go, excuse me, you're complaining about the fact that you have services, but it does trickle down, and now Utah has more services.
Yes, yeah, it does, and there are many states that may not have a legal mandate. Like, we have a law. I think Oregon has a law, but other states have mandates. Like Michigan has a mandate for self-determination. They know they want, and what the good news about this for everybody across the United States is federal government likes self-determination. Yeah. They want the money going closest to the person needing it. Yeah. They don't want all this bureaucracy in between. Yes. So,
and it's ineffective.
It's ineffective. And so really for other states, there is a move for mental health to be self-determination, for a lot of different systems to go self-determination. So there is hope in other states. So
what do we need to know now, though? Is it that it's just we need to be patient?
One of the things we wanted to slow roll out, because we're changing a system. Mm-hmm. You know, there's multiple things we need to be doing, and as the Autism Society, we're working with the state. We're on a state advisory committee to look at the training. Who's going to be trained? How are they going to be trained? while we wait for those federal waivers to come in. So that really the federal dollars are going to drive how this is going to go, because then once the federal dollars get in, we get to go and have more money in the system to train. So we have three people from Autism Society, Judy, Mark, Connie, and Harvey Lapin, all up in Sacramento. They're on this committee working with Disability Rights California. So we have that going. So one of the things we were talking about is if you want or interested in self-determination and your child is, we say 5. If they're 3, it's a big burden to put on a parent of a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of learning, there's going to be a lot of training, and so we want it to be a little bit older. People have been in the system, know the system a little bit better. So if you're interested, one of the things that we're having everybody to do is write on your IPP, I'm interested in self-determination.
Okay.
We don't know how it's going to roll down to the regional centers and how they're going to pick the first 2,500.
Okay.
Okay, for 3 years it's 2,500, then it opens to the state. So there's advisory committees. So if you're interested and you want to be on an advisory committee, you contact your area board.
All right.
And so right now we're looking at starting to do training probably in October.
Okay. And how long is the training?
We're determining that.
Okay. All right. But I love the fact that you're calling it what it is and saying this might be a little bit overwhelming, intimidating for somebody who's just starting out, wanting people. But if you've got a 3-year-old, by the time it rolls out to the state, you'll be ready.
You'll be ready. You're going to be ready.
It'll be ready.
And we will have this first 3 years is really us getting the kinks out of the system.
Yeah.
And one of the things too is that, let's say we have a person that wants a service that's not really currently available.
Right.
We're going to be creating, we have service providers that are going to have the opportunity to create services specifically for certain needs. So that's so exciting for our providers who have been crunched and crunched and crunched and crunched.
Yeah.
And, have a lot of them have been working on independent skills, but none of that's getting covered. So it's going to open it up so we could go and have more services.
So we're going to see some different things. We might see some more social.
Absolutely, social skills is a huge issue. It's really that was cut from some regional centers have taken a hardline stance. We're not going to do any social skills. Some are, well, we think this is important. Now, with people with autism, that's their core deficit.
Yeah, so you think it would be important.
You think it would be important. So the social skills aspect is going to be huge. So.
All right, so we're going to keep an eye on it. We'll keep having Caroline come back and fill us in as we go. But if you are interested in doing that and you have a child who's over the age of 5, contact your local chapter of Autism Society.
You could do that or go to our website, autismla.org.
Okay, great. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back and talk briefly about the Disney Pass. The last time Caroline was here, it was just days before they were changing it, and you were going to take some people and take a look at what happened as a result. So we want to do our 8-month checkup on because I have not been back. I have to be honest. I have not been there since it changed.
Yeah.
So I want to know all about that. So stick with us. More after these messages.
The Institute for Behavioral Training provides courses in applied behavior analysis for the treatment of autism. Access IBT e-learning videos on the move and learn at your own pace.
Talk a little bit about intensity.
IBT e-learning makes any location your classroom on the go.
So our objectives for today are to really learn what is autism and how is it diagnosed.
Get professional guidance with IBT face-to-face training. IBT face-to-face training courses prepare you to effectively implement ABA-based interventions. Choose between small group and one-to-one instruction. Earn BCBA supervision hours via one-to-one video conferencing.
So I had a chance to review your BIP today. You know what? It looked really good. You did a good job with it.
IBT continuing education courses. Earn credit through webinars, conferences, article reviews, and e-learning videos. You can learn more at ibehavioraltraining.com. IBT, 360 degrees of ABA training.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We are here with our very special guest. Caroline Wilson is with us. She's the Executive Director of Autism Society of Los Angeles. So thrilled to have her here. When we last had you on, it was in the first week of October. We were just days away from when Disney was changing from their guest assistance pass to the current system, correct, which the name of it now has a disability in it somewhere.
Disability Access Card.
Okay.
DAC.
Which was my first problem.
Yeah, that was, because I keep on using the acronym, and yeah.
I like guest assistance pass because it didn't make you feel less than. Exactly. Disability, well, I was raised, my mother had a disability, and she always would say, you know, we don't use that word. I'm very capable, but I have some challenges. Right. So I still go, already our trip has to be, our vacation has to be, start with that.
Right,
with
disability
a label
on the front of it. Yeah.
Okay, but so it hadn't happened yet.
Right.
And you were here with us that day, and you were saying that you were taking a group of people, and you were, once the pass started, in the first couple of days, in that first week, you were going to go to the park and see what it was all about.
And yeah.
And now it's 8 months later, and we haven't had a chance to talk to you. So what was it like, and where are we at now with this pass?
Well, when I had gone like days after I'd been here, and I went with Judy, Mark, and myself, and we went into disability, you know, looking at the different people in line and talking to them, and timing how long it took. It took an hour and a half to get through the line to get the pass.
That's the line to get the pass, which then allows you to stand in another line to get a mark saying you can get in a shorter line for the ride.
Correct.
Okay.
So it was a long process, and it took forever for them to explain it to people, and people were confused. And when you went to the table, you know, and you finally got up to the head of the line, they give you this pass, and they said, "Where would you like to go first?" And parents are going, "I don't know."
Right.
You know, one guy has daughters with autism. He goes, "By the time we get over, they may be in two different separate." I don't know.
Right.
They had to pull out. Okay, I don't know, Dumbo. Yeah. So you had to go and start with a time. So that was problematic. It was very chaotic. You couldn't find where the different kiosks were. They weren't very well marked, and you know, it was really extremely stressful for families. And I heard, you know, people at the Disney office going, "You have to plan and strategize your trip," and it just killed me, because parents have to plan and strategize their life. This is one place that they didn't have to plan and strategize.
Right. And how do you plan and strategize as you're walking? If you walk through a park with a child, let's just talk about any child, and you have a plan of, oh, we're going to make our way over to Dumbo, but as you go walking by Dumbo, you see the castle, and Cinderella's in front of the castle, and now your plan changed.
And I think the focus was, what the focus Disney had was wrong, that our kids can't stand in line, and that the line was the big focus. It's not. They can't wait. So you bring your kid over to a kiosk and you say, "I want to go on Peter Pan." That's 60 minutes. Most of the waits were 60 minutes. So you have to wander. Now, they heard Peter Pan, and they're standing next to Peter Pan.
Right.
So they're now having a big meltdown because they can't go on.
Right.
And so they go, "Oh, go in the gift store," which my daughter's 23 now. If I would have, when she was little, gone into a gift store, I'd never get her out. Right. It was, you know, mull around for 60 minutes. And
because you really can't go on another ride during that time. You only can get on one ride at a time.
Well, you could go on a ride if you want to wait in line.
Right, but that's the, you know.
That's the whole...
Right, and it's a complete lack of understanding of how a child or even an adult with autism deals with the world.
Yes.
It's a mental block. Okay.
Definitely. And we took 100 adults with autism into the park. That was probably November. No, actually, that was January. And I will have to say, with my group, I had the guest assistance pass for the group. We only got 4 rides in 8 hours. So we have to look at, it's a different experience if you have a disability. It is a different experience. So that's an issue.
Yeah. Somebody has written in and said, regarding the Disney Pass, did you have the chance to speak with any higher-ups about it, or was it just a test of things in the trenches? Is there any talk of filing an ADA claim, considering the line to get the pass to earn the right to get a card, to wait in more lines for a ride, return times is causing less access to those with disabilities, considering all the wasted time? It's a good question, right?
Very, very good question. We've talked to Disney higher-ups. One of the things that Disney has done is they've talked to a lot of different people separately. So they talked to TACA, and they've talked to us, and they've talked to our national office, and they talked to, and they all do the very, you know, interested and concerned and polite, write everything down. But it was kind of a divide and conquer type of mentality.
Yeah.
So, you know, it really, now there's a lawsuit, an ADA lawsuit, brought to Disney by parents, and I think there's like 8 or 9 people that are in this lawsuit, and it's claiming ADA violations.
Yeah. And if you want to support that lawsuit, and if you want to find out more information, Kim McLean at McLean Advocates is the sort of one of the point people who's driving that, and you can go check that out.
It's also, we have a Disney blog that will be on our blog, along with a really great article that somebody had done about, one, the complaints about the pass, and also the lawsuit.
Okay.
So I have not heard this. This was filed beginning of April. So I haven't heard any response from Disney yet on it.
There is a Facebook page too for the lawsuit if you're interested in that as well. You know, it's an interesting thing. I've not been back. We're talking about going next week, and you know, normally we go with my niece who has a neurotypical daughter, and I was describing to her how the new pass would work, and I said I think it would be better for us, especially at this point, my son is doing well, to not participate in the pass, because what it will do, she has a 5-year-old, and it will drive her crazy.
Yeah,
she won't be able to wait the amount of time in the amount of lines that we have to go in. And to me, that's a neurotypical 5-year-old. What are we saying here, kids?
I know. We're saying that really it's all about the line. And I think that everybody was going, well, they're getting preferential treatment because they won't stand in line, and we're going to make you stand in line. It's not about the line. It's about the behavior that comes with trying to wait. It's waiting, not the line.
Yeah, the thing that I always used to talk about, because we tried to go to Disneyland a couple of times before I knew about the pass, and we left in tears one day after we'd paid to go in, and we'd been there for less than 4 hours. We left in tears because we were waiting in line for the boat that's the Storytown thing, and we waited a really long time, and my son kicked a little girl behind us. And, you know, we had to leave. We walked out of line, and we left, went to the parking lot in tears, and I said, I guess we're just not going to be able to do these kinds of things until we can get these other things out of control. And yet, they had told us to take him, put him on the teacup, spin him, and my child could speak better after he was spun. This was good therapy for him, but it was closed to us because we couldn't hang through some of the things that they had to do. And then we were told about the pass, and it made it so we could.
It made everybody feel like we can do Disney now. My kids didn't have the pass until they were much older, and my son lives and eats and breathes Disney, and he wouldn't go back until he was 12 because and then there was the pass, and we were able to go in and actually enjoy it. So I think the one problem with it is that this has really been, and it's a Southern California thing. People are not as passionate about Disney World because people go through Disney World. This is our life. We celebrate birthdays there. We go. We have passes. We go on a regular basis. It's part of our community, and I think having that cut off has been so detrimental to people. You know, one mom, she goes every Sunday. This is the one fun thing she can do.
It's the reward for your kids. I've even said that you know, people want to know how my marriage survived the early years of autism, and I always say our Disneyland passes. That was the only time that my husband and I had a time together when it was not like, what are we going to do about this? We would have the car ride down to have conversations, the car ride back to have that was the only time we had a time time to have a conversation, and we had the time at the park where our child was happy and we got to enjoy each other's company. I always used to say I never love my husband more than I love him at Disneyland. Yeah. And I have not felt like we could go.
I know, and it's really, really sad. I think that, I think the sadness is that I don't think Disney as a company understands the...
It's a disconnect.
Enormity of what our population and how they relate to it.
Yeah.
That this is something these kids are, you know, my son is doing, he's 25, he's doing Disney and the opera. So he's doing stories and putting Disney characters and drawing Disney characters as opera people. So it's really something that is more than just entertainment.
Yeah, it's a very big deal.
It's a big deal.
I really hope, and Disney promised us way back, they said, well, we're going to institute this and we're going to look at this and we'll see how it works, and you have to trust us, and we're Disneyland and we've always done the right thing before. Let us do this. So I personally want to say to Disneyland, okay, you've had 8 months. Could you please listen to us now?
Yeah, I think that they've been listening, but they've been listening and filing it away and giving lip service and not really sitting down and saying, okay, we've tried it. We've all tried it. We know it doesn't work. How much do you want to, you know, go after
kick the dead horse.
Kick the dead horse. So, you know, I think that was the big barrier at the beginning. You didn't try it.
Yeah.
So twice tried it, crazy.
Yeah.
You know, and not a good time for and these were adults.
Yeah.
You know, so it was trying to shuttle and get 100 people through the park and the guest assistance passes, and it was quite an experience.
And are they suggesting, because you took 100 adults, are they suggesting, well, that's not a typical thing? Because the thing about Disney always was we're inclusive for everyone. Everyone could come. And why couldn't you bring 100 adults?
You normally could.
You should be able to.
It's just an orchestrated, really, we had great people. This was with Harmer Cause and Javi Ream. These are groups that work with adults all the time, and they go every year.
Yeah.
And, you know, they were trying to go and be proactive and saying, this is what we need, this is what we need. An hour and a half wait. You know, so again, we're getting a lot of lip service that we care about your community, but we really are not showing that we care about it. And then we have to go and deal with Disney and employment, because they don't employ our people either. So it's a bigger issue, you know, and it's not just about entertainment. Like, our kids speak because a Disney character does.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, how many videos have we seen where the kid, the first time they speak is when they're singing or talking to the Disney character? Yeah. And even, you know, a news report recently Leslie Stahl did about how Disney videos are being used to teach kids on the autism spectrum.
I used Disney videos. I had to tell the psychologist that, okay, that's kind of close to what you want him to respond to, but that's Eeyore. Just have to give you that heads up, you know. You're not hearing him, you're hearing Eeyore.
Right.
You're going, really? You know, I'm going, yeah, look at Winnie the Pooh. It's like coming out. You know, yeah, he's speaking, but it's not him.
Right.
It's Eeyore.
But it's still a step along the way.
A step along the way,
yes.
And Disney was a step along the way in our, well, particularly my son's evolution of language.
Yeah.
There's a Disney part of it. But I think I just wish they understood how important it is to our community.
Yeah.
Our kids with autism really relate to it and are able to go and communicate and do major things because they have Disney.
Well, and I've said all along, and I'll say it again, if there's anybody from Disney who's paying attention, I think what would get this done is if you had 3 different people high up at Disney spend an entire day, let's send 3 families with 3 Disney executives and just spend the entire day at the park with 3 random families that have autism, so that you can see that it's not the same for everybody and what the challenges are. You know what they say, you can't understand somebody until you've walked a mile in their shoes. So come on, walk a mile in our shoes at the park with some real kids, with some real families. I think you'll feel differently. That's all it will take.
Absolutely.
If we could just have one day, 3 executives, 3 kids, let's go.
Yeah.
let us know. We'll be happy to hook it up.
Yeah, I would love to do that, you know, because I think that you would get a totally different perspective, but you also would get the perspective of what joy it brings families. That this is something that is so positive. It's not just entertainment.
Yeah.
It means more than that.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, it's just like Undercover Boss. You don't know until you go in, so this is our challenge.
This is our challenge to Disney.
In any case, we thank you so much for being here with us and taking the time to elucidate so many of these different topics for us. And where can people find Autism Society Los Angeles? What's the website?
autismla.org.
autismla.org. We thank you so very much.
Thank you.
We're here at the very end of the show, and I want to remind everybody that tomorrow we will have Dr. Doreen Granpeche with us. Very excited to have her with us. And we've already gotten a question for Dr. Granpeche about the release of Skills Book. Excited to have her answer that for you. Then in the second half of the show, we have Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Coach Elaine Hall, who is from the Miracle Project. You may have heard of her from Autism the Musical. She's going to be with us tomorrow talking about the NEA grant that they just got and what they're going to be doing this summer and the performance that they've got coming up. I said it's like Theater Week here at Autism Live. Very exciting. And we're going to try to see if we can get to the Unified Theater's performance tonight, but you know that Nancy and I will be talking about that tomorrow since Wyatt is in the performance. So very excited. And don't forget, on Thursday, we'll have Dr. Adele Nadowski with us, and Dr. Jonathan Tarbox will be answering your questions, and they're going to tell you about ABAI, which they're just flying back from today. So all of that and ever so much more. We've got a big, big week in front of us, but we're done for now. So please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.